Hello, my name is Rodi, and I'm working at Terabyte on the database and data warehouses source connectors team. What we do is building connectors that extract massive amounts of data and supporting all sorts of data sources in diverse range of use cases, making our users successful. The way we do it is by providing dependability, scale, leverage, expansion, and innovation. What I would like to do in this talk is to go over all the achievements and the accomplishments we made since the last time we met here at Move Data. In terms of performance, we gained a lot, up to 10 times in the last year. We certified Postgres source connector to read terabyte size tables. We got MySQL connector to a certified state and also able to read terabyte size table. We have a brand new MongoDB connector. On Postgres, we support cursorless incremental syncing. We now support native column selection on the source level. We improved greatly our CDC. And lastly, we made leaps and bounds in terms of our tooling. So starting off with performance gains. This is an Airbyte-wide effort to get everything working faster because, as you can assume, the slowest, the weakest link is as fast as we can go. In terms of our connector, in some cases, we managed to get to up to 10 times faster than we were last year. In order to be able to do that, we invested a lot in creating data sets and benchmarks and dashboards and testing tools, and some of it is internal and some of it is available for the community. And as you can see, we made a huge progress in terms of our performance. And of course, performance, we always strive to be faster and better, so you can expect news in that area as well. Next up, being able to read the terabyte tables. And when I say terabyte, I mean that we certified Postgres to a terabyte table, but really the amount of data that we can now move is virtually unlimited. And by that, I mean that the rate of records and the time to get results is now a constant and is not in any relation to the size of the table. In order to be able to do that, we had to overcome a lot of performance hurdles and learn how to read the data kind of with the grain and not attempt to format or order it in any way. In addition, we also checkpoint along the way. So if, for example, your sync failed due to a network error or maintenance window of the server, we can continue from the same spot and never have to start over. We also divide the huge syncs operations of terabytes into smaller chunks, which makes everything more resilient. And lastly, and most importantly, all those learnings and methods and the way of thinking that we first implemented for Postgres, we took all of that and applied it to other source connectors. And the first one that gained that was the MySQL, which first of all got certified. It's no longer a community connector, but a certified. And also it enjoys all the benefits of being able to read the terabyte tables at the same rate with all the benefits of checkpointing and dividing the tasks. When I say certified, what we mean by that is that all data types are covered, the most exotic geography and geometric and all sorts of dates with and without timestamps and without time zone. We keep track and ensure that our success rate is above 99%. And also that our rate of syncing data never goes below 10 megabytes per second. Continuing with MongoDB. So this time we have a brand new MongoDB connector, which was actually built from the ground up and is replacing an aged connector that kind of fell into disrepair. So this new MongoDB can now do CDC and is using the latest and greatest in the latest Debezium and all the internal libraries that Terabyte has developed since. We support in MongoDB self-hosted servers and also the MongoDB managed the Atlas service. And currently, MongoDB supports mixed schema, but because some customers use MongoDB in a way that is not similar to traditional database, but every document has its own set of fields, we're also adding a schemaless mode. And as you can see, in a schema, what you're going to expect is that every column on Mongo is going to translate a column on your destination table, whereas in schemaless, you're going to have a single AB data field, which will contain a JSON of the entire set of fields, and that set of fields doesn't have to match any other record. Next up, support for Postgres XMIN. In order to be able to do incremental things, we need some type of a cursor or use CDC. And in the past, user had to provide some field that can be used as a cursor, which is typically an updated add field. With XMIN, we're using a hidden column that exists on every Postgres table, and that column is guaranteed to monotonically increase each time a record is inserted or updated, which provides a perfect cursor because it's always there and it's always updated and it doesn't rely on any user or application interaction. One thing to note is that XMIN wraps at the value of 2 billion, which means that after 2 billion, it goes back to 0, and we account for that in our connector. Next, a column selection on the source connector level. What we have is the platform itself knows how to omit columns on a stream which you're not interested in syncing. By adding native support on the connector level, what you're gaining is you're saving egress data from your database to Airbyte. And also, because we're actually not reading that data, all your personally identifiable information is left in its location and never sent anywhere. CDC enhancements, CDC or change data capture. Briefly, it means that instead of querying the table for its records, we use a ledger or a log of operation. This row was added, this row was deleted, this row was updated. What we achieved over the last year is with CDC is we're now working with the latest version of Debezium. That's the library that we use for CDC. We actually worked with them and helped them by committing changes to their library. It's an open source project. We also added the heartbeats to better support all sorts of large and very large table scenarios. Our shutdown is now predictable and quicker and guaranteed to never lose any records. And we can now also, in case you have a single sync that contains a number of operations, a single row was updated a few times in a single sync, we are now able to dedupe this row correctly and select the very latest state of that row. As a result of the improvements in CDC, we now feel comfortable to make this the default sync method when you create a new connection. And lastly, I'd like to talk about the improvements we made in tooling. Over the last year, we invested a lot in all of the tooling around our connector, and this is of interest mainly for the developer and the greater Airbyte community. What we do now is when you're building either locally or on GitHub, it's the process is orchestrated by the same Airbyte CI tool, meaning that your local build is identical to the CI build, so you're not going to have any difference between what you're seeing on GitHub and what when you're building locally. The build itself became much, much more reliable. We're actually at over 99% success rate for the builds themselves. In addition, we also aggressively parallelized everything that has to do with the build. And last year, it took around an hour to get everything built and tested for a single connector. We're now down to 8 minutes, and we're not done yet, actually. So all these goodies were first introduced in Postgres, and feel free to try it out. And we're now also moving it to MySQL, MongoDB, and SQL Server, and the rest of the source connectors. And lastly, in the past, Cloud and OSS ran a different flavors of the connector. On Cloud, we ran a strict encrypt, whereas running locally on OSS, you could run an unsecured connection, which we're not allowing on Cloud. So now that is no longer the case, and now a single connector is running either on Cloud or on OSS, of course, guaranteeing the security on each side. That's it from the database and data warehouses connector. Please feel free to try all these new features, and thank you very much for listening.